Good afternoon. This is the meeting of the Contractor State License Board, and thanks for you for coming out. We know that July and August is typically our vacations months, but thanks for those who are here and those on the phone, and we're here to take care of business. I also like to thank our registrar and her team of division chiefs and their staff, the way they kept things going and continue to raise the bar. So many kudos go out to them, and thank you. And with that said, my name is Ed Lang, and thanks for coming. Linda, would you?
Yes, pledge allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I have one nice announcement. Johnny Simpson has been reappointed to the board, so that's great.
Congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. That keeps us at 15.
Thank you.
You're welcome there. Aaron, rather. Yes, would you call roll, please?
Thank you. Kevin Albanese. Kevin, are you on the line? Augie Beltran.
Present.
Linda Clifford.
Here.
David Delatorre. Dave Diaz.
Here.
Susan Granzella.
Here.
Joan Hancock.
Here.
Pastor Herrera is excused absent. Bob Lamb. Bob.
Bob.
I think we're having a problem.
Kevin Albanese just joined.
We could tell.
Bob, are you there? He was
Bob,
here.
are you on mute?
Ed Lang.
Present.
Marlo Richardson. Frank Shetter.
Here.
Paul Shafino is excused absence. Johnny Simpson.
Here.
Nancy Springer has an excused absence.
Marlo might have been there. I heard a noise when you,
I've heard 4.
yeah.
Kevin and Bob were there. Johnny was there. So we were waiting on Marlo from Inglewood.
Can you hear Bob Lamb?
Yes. Hi, Bob.
Hello.
And David Delatorre from San Francisco.
Okay.
Marlo,
So that-
David, you guys there? No. Was that it?
Okay.
Thank you. We do have a quorum, so we shall move on. Those who are participating by teleconference, please introduce yourself when you want to speak. And we have locations, and this may not be updated right now. It's Cypress location, Santa Clara location, San Francisco, and San Diego. And they'll probably tune in as we move on. But let's introduce ourselves now, and then the public is free to introduce themselves or not. Let's start on this side and go around.
I'm Melanie Dadwell, Public Affairs Supervisor, sitting in for Ruth Lopes.
Cindy Kanemoto, Chief Deputy Registrar.
Frank Shutter, board member.
Laura Zuniga, Chief of Legislation.
Linda Clifford, board member.
Augie Beltran, board member.
Cindy Christensen, Registrar.
Ed Lang, board member.
Dave Diaz, board member.
Karen Robinson, Chief of Licensing.
Joan Hancock, Board Member.
David Fote, Chief of Enforcement.
Susan Granzella, Board Member.
Kurt Epler, supervising counsel.
Aaron Eckert, Executive Assistant.
You got Bob Lamb on the phone. Board member. Kevin Albanese, board member.
Johnny.
Johnny.
Johnny Simpson, board member, and I have with me
Julie D'Angelo Felmuth from the Center for Public Interest Law.
And Bridget Grammy from the Center for Public Law. And Gretchen Newsom with IBW 569.
Anybody else on the phone?
Marlo Richardson?
Marlo's on.
Marlo's on.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay, Mahler's there.
So we're just waiting on David Delatorre now from San Francisco.
Okay.
Do we need to wait for him, or?
Well, the issue, sorry, Mr. President, members, the issue was, since this is a teleconference meeting, there's an expectation by the public that at a duly noticed teleconference site, there would be the opportunity for the public to participate through that site. If the person is not there or access is not granted, then we presumably have a problem because access to the meeting would be denied in that regard. So what we're trying to do right now is ascertain if in fact Mr. Delatorre is available and the office is open for participation by the public.
Is anyone going to call?
Yes,
Marlo?
Yes.
Is anyone with you there in the public, members?
Yeah.
And Kevin was supposed to have someone.
Yes, there was a member of the public that showed up earlier. He is not here, though, presently.
And who was that? Is that Johnny?
Yeah, that was Kevin.
Oh, Kevin, okay. So, Marlo, you say no one's there with you?
Correct.
Okay.
So Kurt, just for clarification, should we wait until we hear from David, or can we go ahead and do public comment since the board really won't be taking any action at this point?
Well, I think in all candor, I mean, obviously I can barely get my toaster to work because I can't operate this microphone. Out of an abundance of caution, I would normally say that we ought to wait until, but I think in recognition of those persons who may be present and maybe have other things to do, perhaps we would entertain the board taking the public comment session, and then while we're doing that, we'll endeavor to figure out about the other site.
Okay. Well, let's go through the introduction, if they will, and then we'll go to the public comments. Let's continue with the introduction in the public section there. Start on this side. Yes.
CSLB budget. Andrew, CSLB personnel. Nicole May, CSLB personnel.
Frank Nunes, Wall and Ceiling Alliance.
I'm a reporter.
Mark Mendoza with the Center Business and Professions Committee. CSLB Review Show IT.
Phil Vermeulen.
Stefano Lamar, Department of Consumer Affairs, Legislative and Regulatory.
Robert Boykin, Assembly Business and Professions. Silvio Ferrari with California Building Industry Association. Nick Camarado with the CBIA.
Jamie Kahn with the Associated General Contractors.
Ted Rieger in North Delbert News.
Steve Breen, CSLB Public Affairs.
Very good. Thank you all for coming, and I know that we have some interesting topics today, and hopefully you'll be chiming in on those. At this point, do we have any public comments before we begin? Let's see who that is.
Hello.
Is that you, Dave?
This is David Delatorre.
Yes. Good.
Hey.
Do we have any public there with you?
I'm sorry?
Is anyone there with you, the public members?
No.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
board member comment?
Yes, sure.
Oh, hi. Joan Hancock, board member. I would just like to ask that we all take a moment in view of the agenda that we're going to be discussing today, and if we could all just take a moment of silence for the families, the actual people and their friends that were caught up in the balcony disaster in Berkeley, those that died, their friends that missed them, their families, and our appreciation of all of those people that are here today out of recognition for those people.
Okay. Let's do a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. As we continue with our comments, you may see board members using electronic equipment, but it's only for viewing the documents that pertain to the meetings. Your remarks, if any, need to be limited to the agenda items. Because this is a teleconference meeting, I'm requesting that the individual identify themselves prior to the comments. And so, as Joan already gave some comments, and it was very needed, around the table, do we have any comments from board members? Any on the satellite, any comments there? Okay, hearing none, we shall move on. We're down at the public comment section in your packet, and it said that for items on the agenda as well as items not on the agenda, and boards cannot take any action on items not listed on the agenda. Public may comment during this time and are on the agenda items as they come up. We will ask the public comments during and taking action on any item. If we forget to ask for public comment, the public can raise their hand and they'll be recognized. So thank you for that. Now, before we continue, did the public get a chance to make their comments? Okay.
Ask if there's anybody at one of the sites.
Anybody at the site would like to make any comments? Okay, hearing none at this time, we shall move on. And let's go to the item D.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Are there any comments from the public on the minutes? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Any comments from the board members? Okay. Aaron, would you do roll call?
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
Linda Clifford,
Aye.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
David Diaz,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Joan Hancock,
Aye.
Bob Lamb,
Aye.
Ed Lang,
Aye.
Marlo Richardson,
Aye.
Frank Shetter,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Based on that, the minutes of June 18th and 19th has been accepted. Thank you. Let's move on to item E. Bob Lamb, are you there?
I'm here. Hear me.
Okay, take it over.
Okay, this is Bob Lamb. We'll try to do this over the phone, see how it goes. We'll move to section E1 legislation. Review, discussion, and possible action regarding SB 465. This bill was amended earlier this month to require licensees and insurance companies to report most settlements and arbitration awards to the board. While the bill failed passage, Senator Hill and Assemblyman Bonilla have asked the board to work on this issue, meet with stakeholders, and try to reach consensus. And Senator Hill will take up the legislation again next year. Staff recommendation is to authorize staff to conduct stakeholder meetings with interested parties and to report back to the board through the enforcement committee. Do any board members have any additional comments regarding this item? Okay, does any member of the public have any comment at this time?
I'd like to ask a question.
Oh, sure, go ahead. I couldn't see it.
Hi, this is Joan. Who are we talking about at these stakeholder meetings? Have we thought about this? Have we pursued this?
Well, we would,
Laura's there.
yeah, sorry, Bob. This is Laura. I think we would invite people who took a position on the bill who weighed in. There were several groups that testified in support or opposition at the Assembly Business and Professions Committee hearing. So I think we would start with those groups and then work with our kind of industry list that we have already in place to invite additional participants. But we would open it to as many people as wanted to participate.
I have a comment.
Okay.
It seems like the bill is overly broad, is the way it, and that's probably the reason that it probably had some problems. But I assume,
just a minute,
that
Frank.
the stakeholder meetings are basically.
Hold a minute, hold a minute. Are we having a problem?
I don't know what, I turned that speaker off for a moment.
Can you guys hear okay?
I can hear you.
Can you,
I can
okay,
hear you.
okay.
Are
All
we
right,
holding
proceed.
stakeholders meetings to basically pare down and sort of narrow the scope? Is that what the purpose is of the stakeholders meeting?
I think that's accurate to say. I think the bill is broad right now in the terms of the types of settlements that would be reported. I think there was several groups expressed concern that the reporting would be too broad and it would be too much information for the board, and the board wouldn't be able to sort through it or find out what would be valuable. And also that just on the licensees end, that would be too much information reported about them. So that's, yeah, certainly probably the first topic of conversation for the meeting is to see if there's a way to narrow down the reporting requirement.
Chair? Yes. So I asked the question, who would be invited? How do we disseminate the invitation to potential stakeholders? I mean,
By email? I mean, we have an industry list we use for the most part to communicate to people throughout the legislative season, so I think I'd start there.
I guess who are we considering stakeholders? Just industry, labor?
Yeah, you know, in support of the bill, Center for Public Interest Law was one of the biggest supporters, so we'd certainly start with them participating. In opposition, there was Associated General Contractors, United Contractors, I believe, some of the other contractor organizations. California Building Industry Association, who's here today as well, had some concerns. So we did have a meeting with Senator Hill before the bill was heard with several groups to try to talk about the parameters of the reporting and see if there's any agreement that could be reached. So there are several groups out there that are interested in discussing it further.
I think Joan, too, I think this is Cindy, just so people know on the other, at the teleconference sites. I think we'll try and make it broad enough so that we catch all contractors, the small contractors and the larger contractors and people that represent them. So like Laura was saying, AGC, Yukon, and then the smaller ones, I believe, who is it, the specialty contractors?
The specialty contractors, yes, they were part of it, and probably the landscape contractors as well.
Right. And then the insurance companies as well, so that'll be.
Yeah, go, Dave.
Okay. Is this going to be multiple meetings? And it sounds like it might be a lot of people where we hold it.
Expecting a lot of meetings and a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah. So the logistics are something that certainly need to be worked out.
Yeah. If I'm correct, this process should be over and into the process by January, am I right?
Well, SB 465 failed passage
Yeah.
in the Assembly Business and Professions Committee earlier this month. So it does have in about 1 year before it needs to be reconsidered. It'll need to get out of the Assembly in, say, June of next year. I'm not sure on the exact date. But so we have approximately a year to work to try to reach some consensus. So,
Oh, that's good.
and Senator Hill's office is going to participate in those meetings as well. And he has staff here if you have any questions.
Through the chair.
Yes, please.
Augie Beltran. Couple of questions. How many meetings are we looking to do? And are board members welcome to attend and possibly not participate? Or can we attend and participate? I guess that would be to you.
So I would expect it to be several meetings. I'm guessing, I don't know, probably double digits in terms of meetings, 10, 12 meetings. I'm not quite sure.
Something
It's a
that
good
we'll
question.
put on the website?
Yeah, I don't think these meetings, to get to the second part of your question, would follow the public notice requirements, where we have to properly notice the meetings and follow Bagley-Keene. But we could put information on our website, I assume. And then to the question of whether board members can participate, I think if we have 2 or more board members, that's when we get into the Public Meeting Act requirements. And I will let Mr. Hepler take that over.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, of course, the stakeholder concept here is purely more of a staff function. Staff goes to these, staff, absorbs public comment. To the extent board members want to come, we do, if we get 2 or 3, or depending on the circumstances, more, then it morphs into a state meeting, a state body, and we'd have to follow the Open Meetings Act and the 10-day notice. So most commonly, the meetings are put on the website or put on public display, but it's it's usually delineated as a staff function, and the board members can certainly participate when the matter bubbles up through the enforcement committee to the full board. Not to dissuade you from coming, Mr. Beltran, you could certainly come
Oh,
if you
yeah,
want.
I'd love to show up. Actually, a follow-up on that question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So we do have board members that actively participate in some of these associations, and board members that work with these associations, and maybe they would like to show up. Me, myself personally, I'm not advocating myself, but we do have employers and other labor people here, and,
Right.
and people that represent the public, right? Would it be possible then that if we had these stakeholder meetings, to stay within the parameters of the law, that if we had signups for board members to go, so there would be no more than 2 attending?
We can certainly, that is certainly within the realm of the board if they want to do that. You are, as a private citizen, you are certainly, may attend as you want. The question is, when we get a sufficient number there, does it convert into essentially a board
Right,
meeting?
and
that's
in
my
order
concern.
to prevent that, because I know that there are a lot of, there are board members that are pretty good-sized employers that this would affect. And I think if I were an employer and I were in this position, I would definitely want to be in one of those meetings. And I think if we afford those board members the opportunity to show up without having to break any laws.
I'm a big fan of that, by the way. So I think if board members were to sort of suggest, internally or something that, I will attend these 2 and perhaps even those 2, there's no problem with that. So if that's the way you want to work it, like I said, all of a sudden if there was some sort of harmonic convergence and all 10 of you, or I'll show up at a meeting, at a stakeholder meeting, then we would have a problem. But if you want to ration yourself out or allocate yourself out or whatever as you see fit, so not as to trigger the OMA requirements, that's totally fine.
We could,
Go ahead, Lori.
She's off.
I can cut off already.
Did you cut off?
I was going to suggest if staff can keep the board members apprised of when the meeting, talk to Cindy about this, and then if board members have an interest in participating, they can contact Cindy or myself, and then we could coordinate from there if we get interest from too many board members and figure out how to divide it up.
Yeah, I would suggest it's a good idea, and once that's set up, I would say call our registrar or email our registrar so she can maintain a list, and she may delegate it to you, but we want to stay within the law, as was just said, and thank you, Augie, for recommending that, and that'll get you in on there. You can't actually argue anything, but, because you actually can't represent the board, but I think it's a good idea. Yeah. Is anyone on the satellite offices have anything to say on this?
I think that sounds great. Kevin Albanese.
Anyone?
The only thing, this is Johnny. The only thing that I would add is just on these meetings, I would suggest maybe 3 meetings, Northern California, Central California, and Southern California, so we can offer everyone the opportunity to attend.
That sounds workable, Johnny. Anyone else out there? I know I have a comment down here. Okay, yes.
My question is the action that we need to take is make a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
Well,
Do we need an actual motion to do that?
Yeah.
If so moved.
Second.
It's properly moved and second that we adopt the staff recommendation. Are there any comments from the public? Are there any comments from?
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
We have a comment in San Diego.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Identify yourself.
Yes. This is Julie D'Angelo Felma from the Center for Public Interest Law. Would you entertain a little bit of testimony on the bill itself and on the concept in the bill?
That's, Lori, will you? Okay. Do you want that now, or do you actually, when you go to those meetings, you will get the full blunt of it? There are some stuff that we can send out to you that's public.
Well, she wants to talk about it.
Oh, she wants to talk about it. Okay. And you're not on you're not online. Oh. Go.
Yes, Julie, this is Laura. You want to go ahead and provide some additional information for the board members?
Thank you very much. I would like to provide information to the full board, if possible, on SB 465 and the concept in it. For those of you who are not familiar with the Center for Public Interest Law, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan advocacy and academic program based at the University of San Diego School of Law. And for 35 years, we have monitored California agencies that regulate business, trades, and professions, including CSLB. We have more familiarity with CSLB and its enforcement program than we do with some other agencies because for a 2-year period between 2001 and 2003, I served as principal consultant to Tom Papageorge, who was appointed by the Department of Consumer Affairs Director as the CSLB enforcement monitor. And we were charged by statute with evaluating CSLB's discipline system and procedures. And during that 2-year period, we published 4 reports on this board's enforcement program and on our suggestions on how to improve it. One of our recommendations in the very first report, and that report was issued on October 1 of 2001. It's available on our website at cpil.org. It made a finding and a recommendation that underlie this very important legislation. The finding appears on page 77 of that first report, and it says the flow of information into CSLB about licensing misconduct is generally inadequate. CSLB lacks mandatory reporting statutes applicable to other agencies. For example, Business and Professions Code Section 800 applies to the medical board. CSLB and the legislature should consider enacting statutes requiring the reporting to CSLB of contractor criminal arrests and convictions, civil judgments and settlements, bankruptcies, debarments by government entities, and private arbitration awards to enable CSLB to make informed licensing and enforcement decisions. The recommendation appears on page 112 of that report. To better protect the public, CSLB and the legislature should strongly consider a statutory scheme requiring reporting to the board of the following information, which is relevant to contractor performance and solvency: civil judgments, settlements, and arbitration awards, criminal arrests and convictions, bankruptcy filings, and debarment by government entities. So this issue is not new. And had that recommendation been implemented 14 years ago when we made it, at least 6 people would not be dead, and many more would not be seriously injured. So why was our recommendation not implemented? Well, at the time, the construction industry representatives were concerned about another recommendation of ours, and for many of the same reasons that as they have expressed now. Back then, CSLB was one of the few Department of Consumer Affairs licensing agencies that did not have a fingerprinting requirement for applicants for licensure, which would enable a proper background check, both so the regulator can be sure that the applicant is who he says he is, and also so that the regulator can receive notification of subsequent arrests and convictions that might be related to the trade or profession regulated. The industry had balked at a fingerprinting requirement for years, expressing concern that CSLB would deny licenses or discipline licenses for quote-unquote youthful indiscretion type convictions that had occurred many years earlier. Well, after much negotiation, we got the fingerprint requirement through in 2002, and we have not heard a peep from the industry that CSLB has ever abused or misused that rap sheet information that it can get via the fingerprinting requirement. Well, here we have another issue related to the flow of information into this board. And please recall that a report of a judgment or arbitration award or settlement or other information, much of which is public information, by the way, is only that. It is a piece of information to which a regulator is entitled if it is going to be able to carry out its public protection mandate. It is simply a piece of information that CSLB and its investigators who specialize in construction work and its fleet of industry experts will look at and analyze and weigh along with other pieces of information that come to their attention. One settlement that's obviously a nuisance settlement is probably not going to trigger any response from CSLB, but it is still entitled to that information so that it can be weighed along with other pieces of information. Now, SB 465 focuses on the reporting of civil settlements over $50,000, which is identical to a reporting requirement at the Engineers Board. But the construction industry seems to have a huge problem with that requirement. While we do not oppose the reporting of settlements at all, and in fact many other agencies receive notice of settlements that are related to their licensees' work as licensees, maybe we should also look at the required reporting of other pieces of information, such as civil judgments, arbitration awards, business bankruptcies, debarments by local governments, and fines issued by other government agencies. Just 2 days ago, the Santa Rosa Press-Democrat reported on Cal OSHA's levy of $165,000 in fines against 2 licensed contractors whose negligence contributed to the collapse of a 150-foot section of Highway 101 near Willis and serious injury to 3 workers. CSLB should know of incidents like that as well. CSLB should have all of this information in order to make more informed licensing and discipline decisions. And CSLB is perfectly capable of analyzing this information to reach appropriate decisions, just as it has analyzed criminal conviction information for the past 14 years without complaint from the industry. We urge this board, and we're grateful to this board for agreeing, I believe, to convene these stakeholder meetings on this important issue, and we hope that you will support, as recommended by the Enforcement Monitor 14 years ago, an enhanced flow of truthful and relevant information into CSLB so that it can do its job. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you for your timely and most informative information about this issue, and I'm sure it will be taken under consideration. Any other comments from the... Okay, hearing and seeing none. Roll call, please. Roll call vote.
Could we repeat what the recommendation was, so we were going on a little bit?
It's the staff recommendation. It says, authorize CSLB staff to conduct stakeholder meetings with interested parties and report back to the board through the enforcement committee. Okay. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Kevin Albanese.
Aye.
Augie Beltran.
Aye.
Linda Clifford.
Aye.
David Delatorre.
Aye.
David Diaz.
Aye.
Susan Granzella.
Aye.
Joan Hancock.
Aye.
Bob Lamb.
Aye.
Ed Lang.
Aye.
Marlo Richardson.
Aye.
Frank Shetter.
Aye. Twice.
Johnny Simpson.
Aye.
Thank you.
You only can vote once.
Okay, Bob, the second item.
Okay, we'll go to section E2, review, discussion, and possible action regarding SB 467. This bill contains CSLB's sunset extension and related policy changes, which were previously contained in SB 465. The board has a support position on SB 465. The board now needs to adopt a position on SB 467. Do any board members have any comments regarding this item?
Hi, Joan Hancock.
Support 467.
Okay. Joan?
It's Kevin Albany, sorry.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, I was just sending in a motion to support 467.
Second, David Delatorre.
It's been properly moved and second that we support 467.
Hang on, you got to get public comment now.
Well, we're getting there.
Okay.
It's been properly moved and second that we support 467. Now, are there any comments? Yes.
Hi, Joan Hancock, board member. You know, I'm looking at this summary, and the summary does not include some of the information elaborated in the text, starting on page 47. And I'd like, Laura, if you would respond to some of these questions with regard to the other issues that are commingled with it, such as transferring the DCA pro rata administration fee assessed to boards and bureaus to the legislature, as well as why are we combining this with the accountancy board?
Thank you, Joan. You raised a good question. I should have included that in the analysis. as the board is familiar with, the board sunset extension used to be an SB 465 as a standalone bill. Senator Hill used that bill for another purpose, the settlement reporting. So moved our sunset extension with our related policy changes into SB 467 as a related sunset extension bill. So SB 467 already extends the sunset date for the Board of Accountancy. It makes a few changes to the Department of Consumer Affairs. Specifically, it's on the issue of pro rata. I think all the board members are familiar with pro rata and how the department's funded.
So can you explain the effect of that if the legislature takes over this piece? I mean, to say that, you know, in the summary that the bill continues the program as it is, or doesn't change CSLB's existing structure, you know, I mean, obviously it does. So that's, I just think that, you know, in light of the fact that we all, you know, want our board to continue, I just think it's important to get this information out among us and understand that. Also, I'd like to know what risks are associated with being aligned with the accountancy board. I mean, what risks does our board face if the accountancy board has, you know?
Sure. So to answer the first part of your question, so SB 467 doesn't make any particular changes to CSLB itself beyond the two policy changes that we've discussed previously, which is elimination of the capital requirement with a corresponding increase in the required contractor's bond for the $2,500, and extend the sunset date on the board structure and the ability of the board to appoint the registrar. So those provisions moved into SB 467. The other provisions in SB 467 extend the accountancy sunset date. I think there's minimal risk in being associated with the Board of Accountancy. Their sunset review is not controversial. The other provisions change the way the pro rata process is approved, in that it is currently approved, I think, just by the Department of Finance. This is going to require the legislature to have an additional level of approval of the pro rata funding for the department.
So what was the Department of Finance's position on that?
I don't know that the Department of Finance has taken a position on the bill. I could get back to you on that. So there is always a risk when you include multiple boards and provisions in one bill. Certainly that increases the risk that the sunset extension doesn't get signed or approved. It's outside of the board's hands.
And if the Department of Finance opposed that, I mean, is that something that's relevant to us to know?
It would be relevant to us if it's not approved. There's not a whole lot we could do about it. I haven't heard of any particular concerns on this provision, but it's certainly possible.
We've spent, a year talking about the first three components of this, you know, that are analyzed in the summary right at the beginning, and all of these other things come along as an addendum right now in this board. And, you know, this is our chance as a board to talk about them, not that we want to obviously oppose and shoot ourselves in the foot and not be here next January, but...
And that's why I didn't include them for the board to take a position on, because they're not relevant really to the board itself and to our particular issue of extending our sunset. That's all I'm asking the board to support at this time. The issues, the Board of Accountancy is not weighing in on the CSLB provisions. CSLB is not going to weigh in on the Board of Accountancy provisions. It's really two separate issues. The pro rata provisions are really an issue.
So is it my mic doesn't seem to want to operate. Oh, there we go. Thanks. Thank you. Is it possible to take a position on this, to vote in favor and slice out the parts that we are not...
The board could certainly do that. I think at this point in the legislative session, it's unlikely to be removed from the bill. I mean, there are issues with the bill. There is a report from the Attorney General's office is required to submit under the bill on its enforcement handling, and it's going to be costly for the Attorney General's office. It's not clear yet how that will be funded. If the Attorney General's office will then bill all of the boards under the department for the cost of preparing that report. Those are special fund costs.
You're shaking your head. I'd love to hear your feedback, Cindy.
I mean, this is very typical that they do move pieces of legislation into another bill at this point in time. I've seen it over several years. And Laura's correct. The accountancy board poses very minimal risk in terms of putting us together with them. You know, the other pieces of legislation, I don't know, Mark's out in the audience, and he's the staffer at Senator Hill's office for our sunset legislation, and maybe, can you give us a little bit more input into this?
My name is Mark Mendoza. I'm with the Senate Business and Professions Committee. We had reassured Laura earlier this year when we had moved those provisions into this bill that even if there was some sort of issue with SB 467, we would want to somehow move that language possibly into another bill to allow for that extension to still happen. So I think your concern's a little bit about whether it jeopardizes the extension of the board, but I think when I had spoken with our chief consultant, we reassured Laura and Cindy that we wanted to obviously keep that extension still moving. So,
Thank you for that explanation, and I commend Lori for picking out the things that we should be concerned with. And right now, there's 2 points that we're looking at in this bill, and I think we move on. Are there any other comments? Yes.
Just that the motion, as Laura said, should be focused only on the things that relate to CSLB.
Yes.
So,
I can make that clear in our letter.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Should we make
I
it
think-
clear in the motion, since there's been a motion and a second?
Yeah, there was a motion and a second made. We're just in discussion, I thought.
Correct,
So I
Mr.
guess is
President.
Kevin good, I'm sorry, is Kevin good with making sure that his motion is applicable to only the CSLB items within this bill?
Kevin, did you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it makes a difference, so if that's the desire of the board, I'm fine with that modification.
Okay, the second, do you, oh, sorry. Kurt, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. President, members, trying valiantly to push the button and it was not responding. I think the question is, I think Mr. Albanese and Mr. Delatorre made the motion to support 467. I think the question is a further refinement. When in supporting 467, is it those things, the extension and the reduction of the elimination of the financial solvency, coupled with the increase in the bond? Is it those three facets of 467 that the board wishes to support, leaving aside the, our unlikely coupling to the accountancy board and the determination of pro rata?
That is my understanding. You said it beautifully. What about the satellite offices? Did you hear the clarification from Kirk?
Johnny Simpson, yes, we heard it. Bob Lamb, yes, I heard it.
Okay.
Marlo, yes.
Delatorre? Okay. David? Delatorre, do you agree with that, and you as a seconder?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay, good. Any other comments before we ask for the public comment? Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, we will now do a roll call vote with the change in the original motion, which is accepted. Please.
Kevin Albanese?
Aye.
Augie Beltran?
Yes.
Linda Clifford?
Yes.
David Delatorre?
Aye.
David Diaz?
Aye.
Susan Granzella?
Aye.
Joan Hancock?
Aye.
Bob Lamb?
Aye.
Ed Lang?
Aye.
Marlo Richardson?
Aye.
Frank Shetter?
Aye.
Johnny Simpson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. Bob, you got the third one.
Okay, we got E3, review, discussion, and possible action regarding SB 119. The board previously took a watch position as the bill was a work in progress. While additional amendments are anticipated, they are not likely to significantly change the bill. Do any board members have any additional comments regarding this item?
All right. Joan Hancock.
Okay, I recognize Joan. Go ahead.
Chair, I just wanted to have some further discussion on the cost of this and the fiscal impact for CSLB. Since Laura has a binder about 6 inches high and has been dutifully working away.
So just to give a little bit of background too, we talked about this at the March board meeting and our June board meeting, and it's, bill's moving along. It's in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. It'll be heard when the Assembly returns from recess next month. There is not any significant opposition to the bill at this point. There was when we met at our last meeting, but it's for the most part been resolved. We are working on our fiscal estimate. We now estimate it'll cost $3.7 million initially and $3.3 million ongoing. And there's really two components to those costs. There is, under the bill, we would create essentially a separate program within CSLB, which is the Safe Excavation Advisory Committee. And that would have members that are appointed by CSLB, by the governor and the legislature. That committee is assisted by CSLB staff, so it would have separate staff as a division within CSLB to handle complaints that are referred from anyone about violations of the DIG law. And they would do stakeholder meetings to develop standards for following the law and do outreach. So their cost to establish the committee and pay for the staff, and that's 14 staff, a supervisor, and mostly enforcement representatives to do the review of the complaints. And then there would be cost to CSLB as well, for approximately $1 million included in there, which is an increased number of cases CSLB would refer on for formal disciplinary action. So it's mostly increased Attorney General costs, as well as an additional enforcement representative for CSLB to handle the workload.
How is it funded? How does that mechanism work?
So the bill's not as specific as it could be in this regard, but right now the PUC has authority to fine utilities for violations. That money goes to the general fund right now, and it's a sufficient amount of money. It's several $1 million annually. So the bill would create a new fund, a new special fund to take that money, so it would no longer go to the general fund, go into the special fund. That money would be made available for the purposes of the bill.
Thank you, Laura, for explaining that. And the information that you cited is in the material that you provided, so thank you for that, to reiterate that. Any other questions that you have on the satellite offices? Any other? Okay, Bob? Is Bob still there? Bob?
Bob Lamb.
Yeah, go ahead. I'd like to make a motion that we continue for approval for the continued watch recommendation.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second that we continue with the watch recommendation, which is the staff recommendation. Your time to consider this. Any comments from our members, board members? Any? Okay, what about the public, general public out there, and also in the satellite offices? Hearing and seeing none. Aaron, will you do roll call vote?
Kevin Albanese?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Augie Beltran?
Yes.
Linda Clifford?
Yes.
David Delatorre?
Aye.
David Diaz?
Yes.
Susan Granzella?
Yes.
Joan Hancock?
Aye.
Bob Lamb?
Yes.
Ed Lang?
Yes.
Marlo Richardson?
Yes.
Frank Shetter?
Yes?
And Johnny Simpson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. This item also passed, and thank you for your votes on that. We're getting down to the end there. Any board members have agenda items for the next meeting? Please let it be heard, and it'll be considered. Okay, anything from the satellite offices?
Chair, were you just asking for recommendations for agenda items for next meeting?
Just
And
items, yeah.
we have opportunity to do that before next meeting. Anytime prior to the 10-day notice?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Good point. I hope everyone heard that. Satellite office, you do have a chance to input.
I win.
Okay. Let's go to item G and our registrar.
Our tentative board meeting schedule, the next board meeting will be in San Diego on September 3rd. That'll be held in conjunction with NASCLA, which is the National Association of Contractors. So that'll be a nice opportunity for everyone to meet them and see what goes on there. And then I'll be getting together with Ed Lang over probably the next couple days, get our schedule set out through the next fiscal year so that you can have all those dates on your calendars.
Excellent.
That's it.
Thank you.
Very good. Any questions from anyone? Satellite office?
None from Bob Lamb.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hey. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, thank you, thank you.